After months and months of talking about it, the Kings have finally got their guy, finally signed Sasha Vezenkov to a 3-year, $20 million deal for the reigning EuroLeague MVP. I was hoping the Kings weren't going to do anything while I was asleep, but they did. I kind of expected this one to happen overnight, though, just because of the time difference. So things would probably get done at a more reasonable time for him in Europe. But for those of you who don't know who Sasha Vezenkov is, I'll give a little background on him. He was drafted in 2017. I believe he was the 57th pick by the Nets, and then he was traded to the Cavs, and then the Kings traded a second round pick for him. I believe that was Isaiah Mobley that they traded. He is a 6'9" stretch four. He is 27 years old and will turn 28 in August, so fits the timeline pretty well. Last season, he averaged about 17 and a half points per game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, shot 53.5% from the field, and almost 38% from three, 88% from the free throw line, so very good percentages. And he is just a guy that fits absolutely perfectly into our offense. I think he's going to be a great dribble handoff guy with Sabonis. He's an elite shooter, quick release. He does not have to dribble at all to be effective, which is going to make him perfect for the NBA. He was able to average those numbers that I just listed without being a ball handler, and to not have the ball in your hands and be attracting so much attention yet still putting up those numbers is extremely impressive. And I think back to last year with Keegan Murray, where, he is kind of the same thing, where at Iowa, he had a lot of attention on him, still put up great numbers, and then came to the NBA and his 3-point percentage went up. And I think that you could possibly see something similar for Vezenkov, because he will be less of the focal point for the opposing defense, obviously, with the guys that we have, and will have a lot more opportunities for open shots. But even if he's not open, he still has the ability to put the ball on the floor, drive to the basket. He is a very good floater, but he's also a very good passer. Those 2 assists per game might not seem like a lot, but for a guy that didn't have the ball in his hands very much, it is quite a few assists per game. You can just tell he's a very smart player, and I think he's a smart defender as well, but he is limited in on defense. He's not the most athletic guy, uh, just not the best physically, defensively, and so he fits right in on this team. This is by no means a signing to address any defensive problems. It just makes our offense even more elite off the bench. So there's still room to improve for the Kings in that aspect. But from watching Vezenkov with Olympiacos, I mean, I can just tell he's going to be perfect coming off of those dribble handoffs. He just has such a quick release. And I doubt he'll earn his way into like finishing the game for the Kings just because of his defensive shortcomings. But I mean, I think you could see him ending games every once in a while when he is the hot hand, and someone like Keegan Murray doesn't have it going, or Kevin Herter even. This move leaves the Kings still with all of their cap space, 13.5 million or so, because that 3-year 20 million, I believe, is the room exception that they are using. I didn't actually know until this deal happened that with the new CBA, the room exception could be 3 years, but apparently it can. And now that is if the Kings are operating under the cap. They still have the capability to act over the cap with a Sabonis renegotiate and extend, and then Vezenkov would probably sign out of the mid-level exception, and then we would use the rest of the mid-level exception to sign a backup center. Getting this deal done probably means no PJ Washington, no Grant Williams. It really is a focus on that backup center spot and possibly, a third string point guard, like I've said before. I think if the Kings were to not sign a backup center and just like run it back with Len and Kata, that would be pretty disappointing. And so I really hope that we go and get a Plumlee, even a Christian Wood, even though I'm not that high on him. If we could get him for cheap, that would be nice. I think Thomas Bryant, kind of in the same category as Christian Wood, where if we can't get anyone else, get one of them and then also keep Len and or Kata, so you have a more defensive center on the roster as well. Dennis Smith Jr. signed with the Nets, so I was disappointed in that. I didn't actually think we were getting him, but I mean, he would have been a great uh, third string point guard to have. Having a backup point guards of Davion Mitchell and Dennis Smith Jr. would have been amazing defensive depth at the guard position. But what I've loved about the Kings free agency so far is just how Monte McNair is maintaining flexibility throughout the whole thing. Like, we are still able to act over the cap or under the cap. There's so many different options. The Harrison Barnes signing didn't limit us, and then the Duarte trade didn't limit us. The Lyles signing did not limit us, and this signing does not limit us really in any way. We still have a bunch of cap space, and so there is still more to come. I think if we were to extend Sabonis and then just pick up a solid backup center, I think that this is an absolute win of free agency so far. We've improved our depth while retaining all of the key pieces to our team last year. So continuity stays, plus the bench is only getting better. I think this has been a very solid free agency so far. It's no big splash, but we're maintaining that flexibility. And if the right trade comes along, we can always do that. Speaking of trade, I figure I might as well, this is a shorter one just because we already knew Vezenkov was probably going to sign. So might as well talk about Damian Lillard requesting a trade. That's just Dame requesting a trade. The timing is just too perfect. Right after they signed Jeremy Grant to that 5-year, $160 million deal. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know why they gave Jeremy Grant that deal. I guess they didn't know Dame was going to be requesting a trade. Did Dame see him getting that contract and being like, wow, we're not going to improve at all? I think I just watch all these other teams in these bad situations and just see how locked in they are to certain guys or how they aren't flexible at all when it comes to their contracts. You lock a guy like Jeremy Grant into a 5-year, $160 million deal, and now you're going to have to try to get off that deal at some point, probably. And it's why re-signing a guy like Barnes is a really good and safe move because we can maintain that flexibility. So many tradable pieces on this Kings team, but we don't have to trade anyone for a while. We can just let things ride this season. The only worry after this season is re-signing Malik Monk. Like, that's the only guy who we have to worry about, really. So that's going to be it for this episode of the Roll Report. I'm very excited that we have Sasha Vezenkov coming over. He should be a great addition to this team. I will be back whenever the Kings make more moves. So I will see you then. Peace.